I was knee-deep in laundry when I found it. A letter, yellowed with age, tucked neatly between the folds of an old quilt my grandmother had given me. I almost missed it, thinking it was just another piece of junk mail, but the familiar handwriting stopped me cold. My name is Mari, and this letter was about to change everything. The letter was from my grandmother, Agnes, who I hadn't seen in years. She wrote about a college fund she had set up for me, money she had been saving since I was a child. I could barely believe it. My heart raced as I read her words, filled with love and hope for my future. But then the reality hit me like a punch to the gut. My parents had never mentioned this. Not once. I sat there on the laundry room floor, the hum of the dryer the only sound as I tried to process what this meant. My parents, Lorraine and Roger, had always been clear about their priorities. Savannah, my youngest sister, was the golden child, the one they pinned all their hopes on. And me? I was just the helper, the one who picked up the slack. I tucked the letter into my pocket and headed downstairs, my mind buzzing with questions. When I entered the kitchen, Lorraine was at the table, flipping through a magazine, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Mom," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you know about the college fund Grandma set up for me?" She looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing her face before she masked it with indifference. "Oh, that. We thought it was best to use that for Savannah. You know how important her education is." Her words stung, each one a reminder of where I stood in this family. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my cool. "And what about me? What about my education?" Lorraine sighed, as if I was just another chore on her list. "Mari, you know we appreciate everything you do around here. But Savannah has a real future ahead of her." I felt a mix of anger and betrayal simmering beneath the surface. "I have a future too, Mom. Or at least I thought I did." She returned to her magazine, dismissing me with a wave of her hand. "We all have our roles, Mari. It's just how it is." I left the kitchen, my heart heavy with the weight of her words. This wasn't just about the money. It was about everything I had given up, everything I had been denied, all in the name of family duty. I needed to talk to someone who would understand, someone who wouldn't just brush me aside. That evening, I found myself driving to my grandmother's house, the letter clutched in my hand like a lifeline. Agnes greeted me with a warm hug, her home a sanctuary from the chaos I had left behind. "What's on your mind, dear?" she asked, leading me to the cozy living room. I handed her the letter, watching as her eyes scanned the page. "I found this today." "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Agnes sighed, her gaze softening. "I wanted to, Mari. But your parents insisted they knew what was best. I never agreed with them, but, well, you know how stubborn they can be." I nodded, grateful for her honesty. "I just don't understand why they would keep this from me." "Sometimes people get so caught up in their own plans that they forget to see the bigger picture," she said gently. "But you have a choice now, Mari. You can take control of your own future." Her words resonated with me, a spark of hope igniting in the darkness. I realized then that I couldn't let my parents dictate my life any longer. I had to find my own path, even if it meant leaving everything I knew behind. As I drove home, the weight of the letter in my pocket felt less like a burden and more like a promise. A promise of a new beginning, one where I could finally be more than just the helper. I could be Mari, the woman my grandmother believed I could be. But as I pulled into the driveway, a sense of dread settled over me. I knew this was just the beginning. The real battle was yet to come. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of determination, but also a knot of anxiety sitting heavy in my stomach. I knew I had to confront my parents about the letter, about everything. I couldn't keep living in the shadows of their expectations, and Agnes had given me the courage to finally stand up for myself. I found Lorraine in the kitchen, stirring a pot of oatmeal. Roger sat at the table, hidden behind the morning paper, as usual. I took a deep breath and stepped into the lion's den. "Mom, Dad, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Roger grunted, lowering his paper just enough to peer over the top. Lorraine glanced up from the stove, her expression wary. Is this about last night? Lorraine asked, her tone already defensive. Yes, it is, I replied, pulling out the letter and placing it on the table. Why didn't you ever tell me about the college fund Grandma set up for me? Roger folded his paper with a sigh, setting it aside as if this conversation was an inconvenience. We thought it was best used elsewhere, Mari. You know how we feel about Savannah's education. His words were like a match to tinder, igniting the frustration that had been building inside me for years. And what about my education? What about my future? Lorraine turned off the stove, facing me with a mixture of annoyance and guilt. Mari, you've always been so responsible. We thought you'd understand. Understand what? I shot back, my voice rising. That my dreams don't matter? That I'm just here to support Savannah? Roger leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. It's not that simple, Mari. We have to think about the family as a whole. And what about me? I asked, my voice cracking. Am I not part of this family? Lorraine opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off, unable to hold back any longer. I've sacrificed so much for this family, and it feels like none of it matters. Tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Roger looked away, his jaw set, while Lorraine fidgeted with her apron, unable to meet my eyes. I can't do this anymore, I said, my voice firm despite the tears threatening to spill over. I need to live my own life. Lorraine's eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. Mari, wait. Let's talk about this. But I shook my head, the decision already made. No, Mom. I've made up my mind. I turned on my heel and walked out, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life, but I knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. Later that day, I found myself at Agnes's house once more, seeking her guidance and comfort. She listened as I recounted the morning's events, her expression a mix of pride and concern. You did the right thing, Mari, she said, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. It's time you started living for yourself. I nodded, grateful for her support. I just wish it didn't have to be like this. Change is never easy, Agnes replied, her voice gentle but firm. But it's necessary. You're stronger than you realize. Her words gave me strength, but I couldn't shake the feeling of loss that lingered in my heart. Leaving home meant leaving behind my sisters, especially Eliza and Tessa, who had always been caught in the crossfire of our parents' favoritism. As if sensing my turmoil, Agnes suggested I reach out to them. They need to know you're there for them, Mari. Even if you're not living under the same roof. I took her advice to heart, sending a message to Eliza later that evening. To my relief, she responded almost immediately, expressing her own frustrations with the situation at home. It's been tough, Eliza admitted when we spoke on the phone. Savannah's oblivious, and Mom and Dad are more focused on her than ever. I sighed, understanding all too well. I'm here for you, Eliza. Always. And Tessa too. Her voice softened, grateful for the reassurance. Thanks, Mari. It means a lot. As I hung up, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I might be leaving the family home, but I wasn't leaving my family behind. I was determined to forge a new path, one where I could be true to myself and still be there for my sisters. But as I lay in bed that night, the shadows of doubt crept in. I knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and unexpected twists. Yet, beneath the uncertainty, a flicker of hope burned bright. I was ready to face whatever came next. The first few weeks after leaving home were a whirlwind of emotions. I threw myself into my studies, determined to prove that I was more than just a helper. My grandmother's letter had set me on a path of self-discovery, and I was not about to let it go to waste. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Eliza and I kept in touch regularly, our conversations a lifeline for both of us. She often spoke of the growing tension at home, the way Savannah seemed to glide through life, blissfully unaware of the chaos her presence stirred. Mari, it's like she doesn't even notice, Eliza said one evening over the phone. Mom and Dad are so focused on her they barely see the rest of us. I could hear the frustration in her voice, and it mirrored my own. I know, Eliza. But you're not alone, okay? I'm here. Thanks, she replied softly. It just feels like everything's falling apart. As comforting as it was to be there for Eliza, I knew I needed to focus on my own journey too. My studies were going well, and I was starting to see a future that was truly mine. But just as I began to find my footing, an unexpected twist threw me off balance. It was a chilly afternoon when I received a call from Tessa, my rebellious 16-year-old sister. It was rare for her to reach out, and I could sense the urgency in her voice. "Mari, you need to come home," she said, her words rushed and panicked. "What happened?" I asked, my heart skipping a beat. "It's Savannah," Tessa continued. "She got into some trouble at school. Mom and Dad are losing it." My mind raced as I processed her words. Savannah, the golden child, in trouble? Seemed impossible. But the urgency in Tessa's voice left no room for doubt. "I'll be there as soon as I can," I promised, grabbing my keys and heading out the door. The drive back home felt surreal, my thoughts a jumble of worry and disbelief. I hadn't been back since I left, and the idea of returning filled me with a mix of dread and determination. Whatever was happening, I needed to be there for my sisters. When I arrived, the house was in chaos. Lorraine was pacing the living room, her face etched with worry, while Roger sat in stony silence. Savannah was nowhere to be seen, and the tension in the air was palpable. "Mari," Lorraine said, her voice a mixture of relief and desperation. "Thank goodness you're here." I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "What happened?" Roger finally spoke, his voice tight with frustration. "Savannah got caught cheating on a test. The school called us this morning." I blinked, taken aback. "Cheating?" "Savannah." Lorraine nodded, her eyes pleading. "We don't know what to do. She's never been in trouble like this before." I took a deep breath, trying to process the situation. Savannah had always been the perfect child in their eyes, and now their world was crumbling around them. But beneath their worry, I sensed something else, a crack in the facade they had built around her. "Where is she?" I asked, looking around the room. "Upstairs," Tessa chimed in, her expression a mix of concern and vindication. "She locked herself in her room." I headed upstairs, my heart heavy with a mix of emotions. As I reached Savannah's door, I paused, unsure of what to say. But I knew I had to try. "Savannah, it's Mari," I called gently, knocking on the door. "Can we talk?" There was a long pause before I heard the door unlock and creak open. Savannah stood there, her eyes red from crying, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. "Hey," I said softly, stepping inside. She sat on the edge of her bed, hugging her knees to her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I sat beside her, unsure of how to bridge the gap that had always existed between us. "What happened?" Savannah shrugged, her gaze fixed on the floor. I didn't want to disappoint them. Everyone expects so much from me." Her words struck a chord, and I realized that beneath her entitlement was a girl struggling to meet impossible expectations. It was a feeling I knew all too well. "You don't have to be perfect, Savannah," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "None of us do." She looked up, her eyes searching mine for understanding. "Really? Really," I assured her. "But you have to be honest. With yourself and with them." Savannah nodded, a flicker of hope in her eyes. It was a small step, but it was a start. As I left her room, I knew the road ahead would be challenging. But for the first time, I felt a sense of unity with my sisters, a shared understanding that we were all fighting our own battles. As I headed back downstairs, I realized that the crisis had revealed something unexpected, a chance for healing and change. And while the journey was far from over, I was ready to face whatever came next, together with my sisters. Graduation day came with a bittersweet tang. I stood in my cap and gown, surrounded by classmates and their families, but the seat beside Agnes was conspicuously empty. The absence of my parents and sisters was a sharp reminder of the rift that had grown between us, yet Agnes's presence was a balm to my aching heart. After the ceremony, Agnes wrapped me in a warm embrace, her pride evident in the way she held me close. "You've come so far, Mari," she said, her eyes glistening with tears. "Your future is yours to shape now." Her words resonated deeply, filling me with a sense of possibility. But as we left the campus, a nagging thought lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that my journey was just beginning, and the path ahead would require more than just academic success. Later that evening, I attended a community event, a fundraiser for local charities. It was there that I met Ethan Blake, a charismatic environmental engineer with a smile that lit up the room. We struck up a conversation, our shared interests and easy banter drawing us together like magnets. "So, what brings you here?" he asked, his curiosity genuine. "Just trying to give back a little," I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me at his attentive gaze. "And you?" "Same," he said, nodding. "It's important to support the community, you know?" As the evening wore on, I found myself drawn to Ethan's kindness and understanding. He listened without judgment, offering a perspective that was both refreshing and comforting. By the time we exchanged numbers, I felt a spark of hope for what might come next. In the weeks that followed, Ethan and I grew closer, our connection deepening with each shared conversation and laughter. He became a source of strength and support, helping me navigate the emotional complexities of my family situation. But just as I began to find solace in this new chapter of my life, an unexpected twist threatened to unravel everything. It started with a phone call from Eliza, her voice tinged with urgency. "Mari, you need to know something," she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Savannah's been telling people you left because you couldn't handle the pressure." I felt a jolt of anger and disbelief course through me. Why would she say that? "I don't know," Eliza admitted, frustration evident in her tone. "But it's causing a lot of talk. People are starting to question your reasons for leaving." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. Savannah's actions were more than just the naive antics of a teenager. They were a deliberate attempt to undermine my reputation, to cast doubt on my character. I struggled to understand her motives, the betrayal cutting deeper than I cared to admit. It seemed that even from a distance, Savannah's influence was a force to be reckoned with. Ethan noticed my distress and gently probed for answers. "You seem distracted," he observed one evening as we walked through the park. I hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. But his patience and empathy encouraged me to open up. "It's Savannah," I confessed, my voice heavy with emotion. "She's spreading rumors about why I left home." Ethan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Sounds like she's trying to protect herself in a way." His insight gave me pause, forcing me to reevaluate my perspective. Perhaps Savannah's actions were born from fear of losing her place in the family, of facing the same struggles I had. "Maybe," I conceded, my mind racing with possibilities. "But it doesn't make it right." Ethan placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "No, it doesn't. But it might help you understand her better." His words planted a seed of doubt in my mind, challenging my desire for revenge with the possibility of empathy. It was a concept I struggled to embrace, my instincts urging me to protect myself and those I loved. As I grappled with this internal conflict, I realized that my journey was far from over. Path to healing and understanding would require more than just distance from my family. It would demand a willingness to confront the shadows of the past and find a way to move forward with compassion. In the face of this new challenge, I knew that my relationship with Ethan would be a guiding light, helping me navigate the complexities of love, forgiveness, and family. And while the road ahead was uncertain, I was ready to face it with an open heart and a renewed sense of purpose. The proposal was everything I hadn't dared to dream of. Ethan took me to the park where we first met, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. As he got down on one knee, his eyes filled with sincerity and love, I felt a rush of emotions, joy, hope, and an overwhelming sense of belonging. "Will you marry me, Mari?" he asked, his voice steady despite the nerves I could see in his eyes. "Yes," I breathed, my heart soaring. 1,000 times yes. The moment was perfect, yet as we celebrated, a shadow loomed over the horizon of our happiness. The thought of inviting my family to the wedding was a tangled knot of anticipation and dread. I wanted them there despite everything. But I also feared their rejection would cast a pall over what should be a joyous occasion. Later, as I sat with Ethan, the weight of the decision pressed heavily on me. "I want them there," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm scared of what they'll say." Ethan nodded, his hand warm on mine. "It's your choice, Mari. Whatever you decide, I'm with you." His unwavering support bolstered my resolve, but the fear of being let down lingered like a stubborn shadow. I decided to send the invitations, extending an olive branch to a family that had often left me feeling like an outsider. A few days later, Eliza called, her voice a mix of excitement and concern. "I got your invitation," she said. "But there's something you should know." My heart skipped a beat, sensing the undercurrent of tension in her words. "What is it?" "Mom and Dad. They've forbidden us from attending," she revealed, hesitation lacing her voice. "They think you're trying to embarrass them." The news hit me like a cold wave, my hopes dashed against the rocks of their stubborn pride. "Why would they think that?" I asked, my voice trembling with disbelief. "I don't know," Eliza replied, frustration evident. "But Tessa and I want to be there. We'll find a way." Her loyalty was a balm to my wounded heart, yet the sting of my parents' rejection was hard to shake. It felt like a confirmation of every fear I'd harbored about my place in the family. Ethan found me later, staring out the window, lost in thought. "Hey," he said softly, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "What's going on?" I leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence. "They're not coming," I murmured, the words bitter on my tongue. "They think I'm trying to embarrass them." He was silent for a moment, absorbing the news. "I'm sorry, Mari," he said finally, his voice filled with empathy. "It's just, I thought maybe this could be a fresh start," I admitted, my frustration boiling over. "But it feels like nothing's changed." Then turned me to face him, his gaze steady and reassuring. "You can't control how they react. All you can do is live your truth." His words resonated, yet the pain of rejection lingered, a persistent ache in my heart. I knew I had to find a way to move forward, but the path seemed fraught with uncertainty. As the days passed, I threw myself into wedding preparations, hoping to distract myself from the turmoil within. But just when I thought I could put the family drama behind me, another twist threatened to upend everything. It was during a visit with Agnes that the next revelation came. We were sitting in her cozy living room, sipping tea, when she handed me a small box. "What's this?" I asked, curious. "Something I think you should have," she replied, a knowing smile playing on her lips. Inside the box was a set of old letters, each one addressed to me in Agnes's familiar handwriting. As I leafed through them, a pattern emerged, a series of attempts to reach out, to offer support and guidance that had somehow never reached me. "Why didn't I get these?" I asked, bewildered. Agnes sighed, her expression tinged with sadness. "Your parents thought it best to keep them from you. They wanted to control the narrative." The revelation was a gut punch, a stark reminder of the manipulation that had shaped so much of my life. It was a betrayal that cut deeper than any I'd experienced, challenging my understanding of justice and revenge. As I sat there, the letters spread before me, I realized that my journey wasn't just about finding my own path. It was about breaking free from the chains of the past, about redefining what family and love meant on my own terms. With Ethan by my side and Agnes's unwavering support, I knew I could face whatever came next. The road to healing was long, but I was ready to walk it, one step at a time. The adoption process was a whirlwind of paperwork, meetings, and emotional highs and lows. Ethan and I had prepared ourselves for the challenges, but nothing could have truly readied us for the moment we met Zoe. Her wide eyes and tentative smile melted away any remaining doubts, and I knew instantly that she was meant to be part of our family. Bringing Zoe home was a new beginning, a chance to build the family I had always yearned for. Yet, as much as I wanted to shield her from the pain of my past, the shadows of my family loomed large, threatening to cast a pall over our newfound happiness. Our first trip back to my hometown with Zoe was fraught with tension. I wanted her to meet Eliza and Tessa, to connect with the parts of my family that had always supported me. But Savannah's presence was an unpredictable variable, one that filled me with unease. The family gathering was meant to be a celebration, a chance to introduce Zoe to her aunts and perhaps, just perhaps, to mend some of the fractured bonds. But as soon as we arrived, I felt the familiar weight of old grievances pressing down on me. Savannah's initial reaction to Zoe was one of curiosity, but it quickly shifted to something more insidious. Her comments, though seemingly innocuous, were laced with an edge that set my nerves on edge. "She's cute," Savannah remarked, her eyes appraising. "But isn't it weird having someone else's kid?" I stiffened, the words cutting deeper than I cared to admit. "She is our daughter," I replied, keeping my tone steady. Savannah shrugged, a smirk playing on her lips. "I guess. But, it's not the same." Ethan, sensing the tension, stepped in with his usual calm. "Zoe's part of our family now, Savannah. That's all that matters." Savannah's gaze lingered on Zoe, her expression unreadable. "If you say so." The exchange left a bitter taste in my mouth, and I could see the confusion in Zoe's eyes. I wanted to protect her from the complexities of my family dynamics, but it was clear that the past was not so easily left behind. As the day wore on, the atmosphere grew increasingly strained. Eliza and Tessa did their best to keep things light, but Savannah's presence was a constant reminder of the unresolved tensions that simmered beneath the surface. At one point, I found myself alone with Savannah, the silence between us heavy with unspoken words. I knew I needed to address the elephant in the room, but the fear of confrontation held me back. I never meant for things to get so messed up," Savannah said suddenly, her voice unexpectedly vulnerable. I turned to her, surprised by the admission. "Then why did you say those things?" She hesitated, her bravado slipping. "I don't know. I guess I was scared. Scared of losing my place." Her words struck a chord, echoing the fears I had battled for so long. It was a moment of clarity, a glimpse into the insecurities that drove her actions. But before I could respond, the door burst open and Lorraine entered, her face flushed with anger. "Mari, we need to talk," she said, her voice brooking no argument. I followed her outside, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and defiance. Confrontation I had avoided was now unavoidable, and I braced myself for the storm. "Why did you bring her here?" Lorraine demanded, her tone accusatory. "You know how complicated things are." "Zoe is part of my family," I replied, my voice firm. "I wanted her to meet everyone." Lorraine shook her head, frustration etched into her features. "You're just trying to make me look bad, aren't you?" Parading her around like some prize. The accusation stung, but I refused to back down. "This isn't about you, Mom. It's about Zoe. She deserves to know her family." Lorraine's eyes flashed with a mixture of hurt and anger. "You always have to make everything difficult, don't you?" The words were a knife to the heart, reopening old wounds that had never truly healed. I felt the weight of years of neglect and misunderstanding crashing down on me, threatening to drown me in despair. As I stood there, torn between the desire to fight and the urge to flee, a realization struck me. This was my breaking point, the moment where I had to choose between holding on to the past or forging a new path for myself and Zoe. The decision was both terrifying and liberating, a leap into the unknown. But as I turned away from Lorraine, I felt a sense of clarity and purpose that had eluded me for so long. I would protect Zoe from the pain I had endured, and in doing so, I would find the strength to heal my own wounds. With Ethan and Zoe by my side, I was ready to face whatever came next, determined to build a future defined by love and acceptance, not the shadows of the past. The day of the family gathering was bright and deceptively calm, the kind of day that belied the storm brewing beneath the surface. I had decided to face Savannah and the rest of my family, determined to protect Zoe and finally confront the unresolved tensions that had festered for so long. As we arrived, Ethan squeezed my hand, offering silent support. Zoe clung to my other hand, her bright eyes taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. I could feel my heart pounding, but I pushed the anxiety aside, focusing on the task at hand. The atmosphere was tense as the family gathered in the living room, polite chatter masking the underlying unease. Savannah was there, her expression guarded, while Lorraine and Roger maintained a cool detachment. Eliza and Tessa hovered nearby, their loyalty a comforting presence. As the conversation ebbed and flowed, Savannah's gaze kept darting toward Zoe, a mixture of curiosity and something else I couldn't quite place. I knew I couldn't let this continue unaddressed. "Savannah," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "Can we talk?" She hesitated, glancing at Lorraine, who gave a barely perceptible nod. "Sure," Savannah replied, her tone cautious. We stepped outside, the crisp air a welcome relief from the stifling tension indoors. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I know things have been difficult between us," I began, choosing my words carefully. "But I need you to understand how important Zoe is to me." Savannah's eyes narrowed slightly, her defenses rising. "I get it, Mari. She's your kid now." "It's more than that," I pressed, feeling the urgency of the moment. "I need you to respect her, to see her as part of this family." Savannah crossed her arms, a hint of defiance in her posture. "And what if I can't?" The challenge in her words was clear, and I felt a surge of frustration. But before I could respond, Zoe appeared at my side, her small hand slipping into mine. "Hi," Zoe said, her voice bright and unguarded. Savannah blinked, caught off guard by the directness. Hi." Zoe smiled, her innocence cutting through the tension. "Do you want to play?" The simplicity of her offer hung in the air, a reminder of what truly mattered. Savannah hesitated, her expression softening as she looked at Zoe. "Maybe later," Savannah said, her voice losing some of its edge. The moment was a small victory, a crack in the wall that had long divided us. But I knew it wasn't enough. There was more to be said, more to be resolved. "Savannah, I know you're scared," I said, taking a step closer. "But you don't have to be. We can find a way through this together." Her eyes met mine, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through the facade. I don't want to lose my place." "You won't," I promised, the conviction in my voice surprising even myself. "There's room for all of us if we choose to make it work." The words hung between us, a tentative bridge over the chasm that had divided our family for so long. It was then that Lorraine and Roger joined us, their expressions unreadable. "Mari," Lorraine began, her voice strained. "We need to talk about all this." I nodded, bracing myself for whatever was to come. "I'm listening." Roger stepped forward, his demeanor uncharacteristically reflective. "We've made mistakes," he admitted, the admission heavy with years of unspoken regret. "But we're willing to try if you are." The offer was unexpected, a lifeline extended in the midst of the storm. I felt a surge of hope, tempered by caution. This was the chance I had longed for, but it would take all of us to make it work. "I want Zoe to know her family," I said, my voice steady. "But it has to be a family that supports and respects her." Lorraine nodded, her eyes softening. "We can do that." It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. A chance to rebuild what had been broken, to forge a new path forward. As we stood there, a tentative peace settling over us, I realized that the journey wasn't over. But with Zoe, Ethan, and my family by my side, I was ready to face whatever came next. The themes of revenge and justice had given way to something deeper, understanding and acceptance. And in that moment, I knew we were on the path to healing, one step at a time. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over Agnes's garden as I sat on the porch, watching Zoe play with Eliza and Tessa. Their laughter floated through the air, a melody of hope and renewal. It was a scene I had once thought impossible, a testament to the journey we had all taken. Ethan joined me, handing over a mug of tea. "Quite the family you've got here," he said, his voice warm with admiration. I nodded, feeling the weight of the past slowly lifting. "Yeah, it is," I replied, a smile tugging at my lips. The weeks following the family gathering had been transformative. Lorraine and Roger had made genuine efforts to reach out, their actions speaking louder than words. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, and I was willing to meet them halfway. Savannah, too, had begun to change. Her initial resistance softened as she spent more time with Zoe, the innocence and openness of a child breaking down her defenses. It was a slow process, but I could see the glimmers of understanding and acceptance taking root. As the evening wore on, Agnes joined us, her presence a comforting constant. "You did good, Mari," she said, her eyes twinkling with pride. I took a deep breath, the reality of her words sinking in. "I couldn't have done it without you," I admitted, gratitude swelling in my chest. Agnes chuckled, a knowing smile on her lips. "You had it in you all along. You just needed to see it." Her words echoed in my mind, a reminder of the strength and resilience I had found within myself. The journey had been fraught with challenges, but it had also been one of growth and discovery. As the night settled in, Zoe came running over, her eyes bright with excitement. "Mommy, can we play a game?" I laughed, scooping her up into my arms. "Of course, sweetheart. What do you want to play?" She thought for a moment, her brow furrowing in concentration. "Hide and seek." Then stood, ready to join in. "I'll count," he offered, winking at Zoe. As we scattered into the garden, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that I hadn't known in years. Conflicts and tensions that had once seemed insurmountable were now threads in the tapestry of our lives, woven into a story of redemption and renewal. Later, as the evening wound down and the stars began to twinkle overhead, Savannah approached me, a hesitant smile on her face. "Hey, Mari," she said, her voice tentative. I turned to her, sensing the weight of what she wanted to say. "Hey, Savannah." She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine with newfound sincerity. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything." The apology was unexpected, a balm to old wounds. "Thank you," I replied, my voice soft but firm. "I appreciate it." Savannah nodded, a hint of relief in her expression. "I know it's going to take time, but I want to be better. For Zoe and for us." Her words were a promise, a commitment to change and growth. It was more than I had dared hope for, and I felt a swell of gratitude and hope. As the night deepened, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The themes of revenge and justice had transformed into something more profound: understanding, forgiveness, and the power of chosen family. Yet, as I lay in bed that night, a lingering question remained. Could we truly leave the past behind, or would its shadows continue to shape our future? It was a question without an easy answer, a reminder that life was a journey of constant evolution. But as I drifted off to sleep, Ethan's steady breathing beside me and Zoe's soft murmurs filling the room, I knew one thing for certain. We were on the right path, and together we could face whatever came next.